Woman surprised to find something behind the altar. Her heart went down. The priest watched as Chris's face became pale as a ghost. "Chris, are you all right?" he asked, but her legs were still going. She wasn't wrong on that. She didn't care about this. She ascended the small steps and laid her hand on the broad stone of marble. Her gasp echoed through the church like a wave in the ocean. Then she felt like something was grabbing her shoulder. It had begun like every other Sunday, telling her husband to get up and let her pass. She shuddered out of her seat and walked to the toilet. She left the church and went around the back to another small annex building where the toilets were located. But on her way, she noticed something that made her freeze on her feet. As she turned the corner, she saw a guy coming out of the church shed. He looked out of place. She didn't recall seeing him there before. He was suited up in black clothing. He did not appear to be part of their faith. But just before he vanished out of sight, she caught a glimpse of his profile, then became pale as a ghost. Slowly, she walked towards the church shed. She braced herself for what she might find, hoping it wasn't what she thought it was. She pushed the wooden door open, holding her breath. She peered inside. There was an odd smell. She looked around the darkness and then she saw it. It was exactly what she feared. In shock, she shut the door and ran back to the church doors. They were in the middle of a service. She couldn't say anything. She didn't want to make a scene, but she needed to tell someone, and fast. Once the sermon was over and people started to leave the church, Chris told her family to wait outside. She wanted to talk to the priest. Without much thought, her husband left her to do it. She walked up to the front of the church where the priest, Bruce Hitchin, was talking to a few other members of today's service. He noticed her coming and excused himself to greet her. Chris and her family were regulars at his church, so he knew Chris well and was happy to see her. However, he would never have guessed that what she had to say would leave him shaking in his boots. But then, just when she was about to speak, a man walked in from the side door and headed towards the altar. Again, Chris felt her heart drop. Bruce watched as Chris's face turned as pale as a ghost. "Chris, are you okay?" he asked, but Chris's feet were already moving. She was walking towards the altar. She climbed the small steps, placed her hand on the marble stone altar table, and looked behind it. Her gasp echoed throughout the church. Then she felt someone grab her shoulder. She turned around to see Bruce's hand on her shoulder, his face concerned. "What is it, Chris?" he said. "Gordon?" Chris whispered. "Gordon, is that you?" Her eyes welled up with tears. Who was he? What was happening? Chris Amick went to the church like any other Sunday, only this time, she went to church and found her long-lost brother. She hadn't seen him in 22 years. She had spent the last 10 years searching for him and always came up empty. She was starting to lose hope. But how did he end up here? Why were they separated? Gordon Peacher moved away with his mom when their parents got separated some odd 22 years ago. It was an ugly divorce, which would leave the siblings never to set eyes on each other again. However, life wasn't easy for Gordon. He got involved with the wrong crowd as a teenager and had been a drug addict ever since. He had been living rough on the streets for the last 3 years and found refuge in the church. Bruce, the priest, first noticed him cutting the lawn and taking out the garbage. He was helping with the upkeep of the church out of his own initiative. Bruce then committed to helping him find housing while he squatted in the church shed. But now, things have changed. Bruce managed to find Gordon temporary housing as the shed was too dangerous to live in. They're still looking for a permanent situation for him, but he still works at the church and helps out when he can. Chris was touched by the kindness of Bruce and hoped that her brother's situation will improve as she thinks about how she can help him. But for now, she said, he has a warm bed and friends. So friends, that's today's story. Leave your comments and give a thumbs up if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.